Morning, men. Hey, this Emmanuel. Can you jump up and let all the guys know that we're starting a little bit early? We're going to start at 10 after every morning instead of quarter after, just so we have more time for the speakers. So I'm going to give them 1 minute to come in, and then we'll start. That's what I meant. More time for the tables. Less time. Well, I got a very brief message this morning. Give you plenty of time at the tables, which would be great. 12 minutes, okay? Pat, you can time me. Well, let's get started. I got a couple announcements this morning. First of all, Bill Russell, where are you? Table 34, I think. Stand up, Bill. Come on up here. So Bill won the August invitational of inviting people to the men's breakfast. So officially, Bill invited 6 people. Unofficially, probably 6 more that maybe he didn't get credit for. But this is a $100 gift card. So thank you. So, and you can take me out to dinner for that if you want. No, just kidding. But good job. We're probably not going to do it this month. Maybe October we'll do it again. But that's what the cards on the table are for. So take one of those cards. If you need more cards, we have them. And we can print more if we need more. So the men's advance for our church is starting this Thursday through Sunday. If you're going, great. If you're not going, would you just, if you're mindful, just be praying for the men up there. We'll just pray for breakthrough. But so if you're not going, and as God leads you, pray for the men that are going. Chaim Goldman on that Thursday, this coming Thursday, they're going to be celebrating the Feast of Trumpets on top of Pikes Peak. Pretty cool thing. And it starts at 9 a.m. So if you want to know more, see Chaim. He's right here at table 2. He just blew the shofar. And it's going to end, what time, about 2 or 3, Chaim? So it's a pretty significant event. So if you want to go, they're going to be meeting at the gate at 9 o'clock, and so you can carpool up. Yep. The table attendance sheets at the table, just make sure a couple things. You put your first and last name, because sometimes it's just the first name. Some tables it's just the last name. But to put the table number on there too, it makes it easier for me when I go through them. What I use those for, guys, if I go through them like last 4 or 5 weeks and I see a couple guys that haven't come in 4 or 5 weeks, what I do is I take them off of your table, but I keep them on our spreadsheet. If they come in, I still know what table they're going to be at, but it allows me to put other people at your table then. So that's why those things are kind of important. So who's doing slides up top? So I'll preview every slide. And as I start talking about the next slide, you'll see it, okay, as they're popping up. So how many of you have ever heard someone say, God spoke to me? I mean, just about everyone here has heard that. I've said it many times. I think very few instances does God actually audibly speak to people. Does it happen? Yeah. Does it happen often? Not a lot, but it happens. Most of the time, when God's speaking to us, he's speaking to us through thoughts and impressions. And so, for some reason, you guys aren't doing the slides. What's that? So you should be on most of the time. There we go. You guys are great. So but not only is God speaking to us through thoughts, impressions, so also our demons, our family, the media, billboards. There's so many things vying for our attention. Would you agree? I mean, you go by a billboard, you see a copper tone ad, and you start thinking these wild thoughts. Well, I mean, all these things are speaking to us. There's so many things vying for our attention. I think that some of the enemy's greatest weapons are weapons of mass distractions, because there's so many things vying for our attention. So the question is, how do we distinguish God's voice from every other voice? Every tone, every inflection, every nuance, just like a human voice, God's got different tones, inflections, nuance. But how do we distinguish that from every other voice? You know, you might go to a playground, you see 25 kids playing. And next slide. Next slide. Nope, back up. You might, there was a slide of a bunch of kids playing on a playground. And there might be 25 kids playing on a great playground while their mothers, maybe 15 moms, are off to the side. And and the moms, maybe they get together once a week and they're talking about their husbands and bragging about their jobs, talking about their jobs if they're working, talking about different recipes they're going to be doing. And all of a sudden, little Johnny falls off the monkey bars. How does the right mother know that that's her child's voice? Well, she spent hours with that child to know every body language, every tone, every inflection, every nuance. She knows that's her child because she's spent quality time with them. You know, how do you tell the difference between real money and counterfeit money? On the federal level, they'll tell you that the feds spend an exorbitant amount of time with the real money. And when they come across counterfeit money, it just doesn't seem right. It doesn't feel right. It just feels off. It feels funny money. And that's how they can distinguish it quite often. I mean, there's other ways, machines and everything, they can tell. They look at the threads and all that. But John 5:19 says that Jesus only said and only did what he saw his Father say and do. Have you ever wondered, how did he do that? Well, have you ever lived next to an airport or a railroad track? In the beginning, you hear every plane that flies over, don't you? I mean, you can hear the planes taking off. You can hear the acceleration and the thrust as they're leaving ground. You can hear them landing. You can hear the tires screeching on the tarmac. But after a while, what happens? You tune them out. And so we have the ability. I mean, people come over and they'll say, Bob, how can you even sleep at night? And Bob says, well, I don't even hear them. Because we have the ability to tune things out. But we also have the opposite ability. You know, a couple years ago, I wanted a black Jeep Cherokee, an older one. And just like the picture that's about to pop up. And so somehow the pictures aren't in there, are they? Okay. So take my word, there's a black Jeep Cherokee. I don't know why they're not popping up, but when I started looking, I didn't think there was that many out there. I'd pull up to a stoplight, though. Once I started looking, there'd be a black Jeep Cherokee. I'd be driving down the road, there'd be one in the parking lot. Be one in the parking lot over here. They are everywhere. Now, these black Jeep Cherokees just didn't, pop up out of thin air. They just didn't materialize out of nothing. They were there all along. They just weren't on my radar. So not only do we have the ability to tune things out, we have the ability to tune things in. And I think that's what Jesus did. He tuned out the things of the world, and he tuned in the things of the Father. So the whole purpose of hearing the voice of God and listening is to listen and obey. There's a Hebrew word for that. The word is shama, and it means, one word means listen and obey. It's one action, one continuous movement, to listen and to obey. A couple years ago, my brother has got a company called Life, the Leadership Institute for Entrepreneurs. We had a Kingdom Global Business Summit at Great Wolf Lodge. And so there would have been a picture of Great Wolf Lodge. But BINGO. So we had this business summit there. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, taught some classes. Thursday, we had a reception. People from many nations came. Friday and Saturday, we had our summit. And I was house sitting for Len Crawley. Len goes to our church here. And I was house sitting for him. And on Monday of this business summit, it was all week long, I'm driving back to Len's house, and I passed a 7-Eleven. And God spoke to me through thoughts and impressions, and he says, turn around and get gas at the 7-Eleven. And it's probably not showing a picture of 7-Eleven, but it should. Love how things work out like that, huh? So anyway, I said to God, God, I never get gas at 7-Eleven. It's expensive. And I got like a third of a tank. I don't need it. God said, just get gas at 7-Eleven. I said, God, I really don't need it, God. And I could just hear the disgust in his voice. Just get gas at 7-Eleven. So I went and got gas at 7-Eleven. God said, go inside and get something. I said, and when I'm talking to God, I'm talking to him like I'm talking to you now, and I'm hearing these thoughts. And God says, go inside and get something. I said, God, I don't need anything. I just ate. I'm not full. God says, just go get something. So I went inside and got an iced tea, and I'm walking up to the counter, and I see this guy, the cashier. He had a shirt on. It said, father of a heart survivor. So God said, ask him about the shirt. So I said, tell me about the shirt. And he said, well, I've got 5 kids. My youngest is baby Levi. Levi's 1.5 years old, and Levi's had 2 open heart surgeries. So right away, my heart was moved, and I'll tell you why in a second. And he said, tomorrow, baby Levi is having a 3rd open heart surgery, and he's not expected to make it, but it's his only chance of life. And I started weeping. I said, I know what it's like to hand my 1.5-year-old child off to a doctor for open heart surgery, not knowing if your kid will come back alive. My number 3 child, open heart surgery when she was 1.5 years. And so we were both kind of tearing up, and I said, my daughter Hannah came back and she lived, and baby Levi is going to live. Can we pray? He said, yeah. So we were both praying, and we're both bawling our guts out, and he's blowing snot. And I left there, and I went home, and I got on Facebook, and I asked people to start praying for baby Levi. And so 250 people were praying for baby Levi. And so my question was, what if I didn't listen to God that day and turn around and go to 7-Eleven? What if I didn't stop and get gas? What if I didn't go inside when God said go inside and get something? What if I didn't talk to the clerk when he said ask him about a shirt? What if I didn't pray for baby Levi? What if I didn't put it on Facebook and 250 people praying? The question I had was, would baby Levi be alive? I don't know. But it's an example of how you hear the voice of God. I don't have a slide for this, but a separate story. I was in Duluth, Minnesota. I used to go back 3 or 4 times a year. I oversaw the health care of my uncle. And I'm sitting in a waiting room, and there's 2 other ladies, I'm not a lady, 2 ladies in the waiting room. And they're about in their 80s. My uncle was in his 80s, and he was getting the batteries replaced on his pacemaker. And I could see this lady sitting across from me, and their husbands were probably doing a similar surgery. And she was just agitated. She couldn't, no matter how she sat, she was in pain, you could tell. And God said her name's Diane. So I said, is your name Diane? And before she could wrap her head around how I knew, I said, looks like you're in pain. She said, I am. She said, I got bone spurs, my collarbone. The doctor says you can't do anything about it. I said, can I pray for you? Because I think God can heal you. And the other lady chimed in and says, hey, can I help you? And I said, sure, the more the merrier. So we both started praying. And as I was praying for Diane, you could see the look on her face went from agony to relief. So I asked her, Diane, how do you feel? She says, man, all the pain is gone. And right then, my phone rang, and I had to take it. It was an important phone call. There was bad reception in the hospital. So I had to go outside. 45 minutes later, I came in. And one of the things that Diane said to me, I've been using a walker for 5 years, haven't walked without it. So I walked in, and I see Diane walking down the hall without her walker. She's got a little kick in her step. And I said, how do you feel? She said, I feel like I'm 16. But it was just an example of just hearing the voice of God. You know, every time we feel that God may be speaking to us and we hear it and we listen and obey, and it actually turns out to be God, it just makes it easier to distinguish his voice the next time he's speaking. And as you listen and obey, it gets easier and easier and easier. Have you ever been on a front porch swing with someone? Could be your best friend, could have been a girlfriend when you were growing up, or maybe your wife now, maybe your kids. And you just sit there and you're swinging and no one's saying a word. And you're just so comfortable with that person, you don't have to speak. And you walk away thinking, man, that was probably the best conversation I ever had. But, you know, I believe we can get to the point sometimes if you spend enough time alone with God, you'll get to know his heart without him even saying a word. There have been times in my life where I've just been praying. It's just me. And the presence of God comes down. It's so thick. It's tangible. You can almost feel the weight, the kabod of his glory. And it's so thick. And I, during times like that, I want to declare to God back to him the value of his worth and tell him how wonderful he is. But my words can't even take flight because they're so weighted down by the dew of his presence. And all I can do is sit there and sit and soak and saturate it and be loved. And I think those are times like that God walks away thinking, best conversation I ever had with Al, you know? But there's times like that. If you press in, you'll have times of that. So just a quick message this morning. I have 2 discussion questions, and they are, when you sense God speaking to you, do you act upon it and obey, and why or why not? And I encourage you, the next time you sense it may be God, act upon it. It may be God, it may not be God. But if it is God, it'll make it clearer when God's speaking to you that you can distinguish his voice. Second question, how do you practice hosting the presence of God? He inhabits the praises of his people. I know when I praise him, God comes down sometimes and just inhabits the praises of my heart. How do you do that? How do you practice hosting the presence of God? Because as busy as our lives get, and they can get pretty hectic. I know mine can. If mine does, yours can too. We all owe it to ourselves, owe it to our friends and our family. We owe it to God to find moments of solitude every day that we can steal away and just be alone with God. In 2004 or 7, so 14 years ago, 2 in the morning, God woke me up and said, let's go for a walk. So I walked about a quarter mile down the road and sat down on a park bench. It was pitch black out. And God said, you're so fast. I thought he was complimenting me. I said, thank you, God. He says, no, Al, you're missing it. You're so fast that you see 5 miles down the road and you're missing the people and the roses that are growing at your feet. God says, I want you to underwhelm your schedule so I can overwhelm your soul once again. So for the last 14 years, that's what I've been trying to do. I slow down enough, even though my life is busy, slow down enough where I have time to spend with people. So there's a number of you I've gone out to breakfast with or lunch with or smoked a cigar with. And but where I've taken the time and invest in the people around me. And I think those are some of the best times. How do you practice hosting the presence of God? So I'm going to leave you for your table discussions. And then all the first-timers that are sitting at the table here. And if you were a first-timer sitting at a table out there, come join me. We're going to go into the library, and we have a special meeting in there. Thank you.